The screen flickers to life, and a single, trembling voice cuts through the silence. I thought I'd lost everything, my family, my hope, my reason to keep going. But sometimes, the darkest nights lead you to the brightest dawn. The camera pans across a misty, desolate beach, waves crashing against jagged rocks, as a figure stands alone, staring into the horizon. What would you do if the person you loved most was slipping away, and the only way to save them was to face the parts of yourself you've buried for years? This is the story of Anna, a woman who found herself in the fog, and discovered a light she never knew existed. Stay with us, because by the end, you'll see how even the smallest spark can guide you home. Anna stood at the edge of her crumbling world, her boots sinking into the wet sand of Crescent Bay. The fog was thick that morning, so dense it felt like it was pressing against her chest, stealing her breath. At 34, she looked older than she should, lines etched into her face from sleepless nights and unspoken grief. Her husband, David, was fading. Not in the dramatic way of movies, but in the slow, cruel way that cancer carves out a life. 6 months ago, the diagnosis had landed like a guillotine, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave him a year, maybe less. Anna had promised to fight it with him, but the truth was, she was drowning. Their small coastal town of Havenport was supposed to be their sanctuary. They'd moved here 5 years ago, chasing a dream of quiet mornings and laughter-filled evenings with their daughter, Lily, who was now 8. But the dream had soured. David's illness had turned their home into a place of sterile routines, pills, hospital visits, and forced smiles. Anna worked as a librarian, a job she loved for its order, but even the books couldn't shield her from the chaos of her heart. She hadn't cried in months, not because she wasn't breaking, but because she was afraid if she started, she'd never stop. Lily was the one who kept her tethered. Her daughter's wide, curious eyes and endless questions about the stars or the ocean were the only things that still felt alive. But even Lily was changing. She'd stopped asking about her father's illness, stopped drawing the colorful pictures she used to tape to David's bedside. Instead, she'd started slipping out to the beach alone, collecting shells and whispering secrets to the waves. Anna didn't know how to reach her, and the guilt of that failure gnawed at her. One evening, as Anna sat by David's bedside, his hand cold and thin in hers, he whispered, "You can't keep carrying this alone, Anna. You're fading too." His words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. She'd been so focused on saving him that she'd forgotten how to live. That night, unable to sleep, she wandered to the beach where Lily often went. The fog was relentless, wrapping the world in gray. As she walked, she stumbled over a small wooden box half buried in the sand. It was weathered, its edges smoothed by the sea, with a faint carving of a lighthouse on the lid. Inside was a single, folded letter, its ink faded but legible. It read, "To whoever finds this, don't stop looking for the light. Even when the fog is thick, it's there. E." Anna clutched the letter, her heart pounding. It felt like a message meant for her, a lifeline thrown from some unknown shore. She didn't know who E was or why the letter was there, but it sparked something in her, a flicker of hope she hadn't felt in months. She resolved to find out more, not just for herself, but for Lily and David. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a way forward. The next morning, Anna woke with a purpose she hadn't felt in years. The letter was tucked into her coat pocket, its words echoing in her mind. She didn't tell David about it, not yet. He was too weak for mysteries, and she didn't want to burden him with her fragile hope. Instead, she turned to the library, her sanctuary of answers. Havenport's library was small but rich with local history, and Anna spent hours poring over records, searching for any clue about a lighthouse, a letter, or someone with the initial E. Her search led her to an old journal from 1953, written by a lighthouse keeper named Ezra Merrill. Ezra had lived alone at Havenport's now-abandoned lighthouse, a crumbling relic on the cliffs overlooking the bay. His entries were poetic, filled with reflections on the sea and the fog that often swallowed the town. One passage stood out, the fog hides the truth, but it also reveals it. I wrote a letter today, not for anyone living, but for someone who needs to find their way. I hope it finds them when the time is right. Anna's hands trembled as she read. Could Ezra be he? The journal mentioned a box he'd buried near the shore, a ritual to mark the end of his time as keeper before the lighthouse was decommissioned. Anna felt a chill. The box she'd found wasn't just a coincidence, it was a piece of someone's story, left for her to uncover. But why? And how could it help her now? She decided to visit the lighthouse. Lily, sensing her mother's shift in energy, begged to come along. Anna hesitated. Lily was too young for such a heavy journey, but her daughter's pleading eyes won her over. Together, they trekked up the cliffs, the fog curling around them like a living thing. The lighthouse was a skeleton of its former self, its paint peeled away, its windows shattered. Inside, they found remnants of Ezra's life, a rusted lantern, a cracked photo of a young woman, and a single word carved into the wall, hope. Lily traced the word with her finger, whispering, "Is this what Daddy needs?" Anna's throat tightened. She didn't have an answer, but for the first time, she felt like she was searching for one. That evening, she told David about the box, the letter, and Ezra. He listened quietly, a faint smile on his lips. "You're finding something, Anna," he said. "Don't let it go." But the challenges weren't over. The hospital called the next day. David's condition was worsening. The doctors suggested hospice care, a word that felt like a death sentence. Anna's newfound hope clashed with despair, and she began to doubt herself. Was she chasing a ghost, a meaningless mystery, while her husband slipped away? Lily, too, was struggling. At school, she'd gotten into a fight, her teacher saying she was acting out. Anna felt the weight of her failures pressing down again, but the letter in her pocket reminded her to keep going. Ezra's words, "Don't stop looking for the light," became her mantra. Anna's search for answers grew urgent. She tracked down an elderly woman named Margaret, the last living relative of Ezra Merrow, who lived in a nursing home on the edge of town. Margaret was frail but sharp, her eyes bright with memories. When Anna showed her the letter, Margaret's face softened. "Ezra was my uncle," she said. "He lost his wife, Clara, to illness when he was young. The fog was his metaphor for grief. It blinds you, but it also forces you to see what matters." Margaret revealed that Ezra had written the letter after Clara's death, a way to cope with his loss. He'd buried it near the shore, hoping it would reach someone who needed it. He believed in signs, Margaret said. He thought the sea carried messages to those who were ready to hear them. Anna asked about the lighthouse, and Margaret's expression turned wistful. Ezra said it wasn't just a beacon for ships, it was a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's a way through. He carved hope in the wall for Clara, to remind himself she was still with him. Anna left the nursing home with a mix of emotions, grief for Ezra's loss, but also a strange comfort. His story mirrored her own, and his letter felt like a bridge between their pain. She began to see the fog not as an enemy, but as a teacher. It was forcing her to confront her fears, losing David, failing Lily, losing herself. She started talking to Lily more, not just about the lighthouse or Ezra, but about David's illness. They cried together, something they hadn't done in months. It was raw and painful, but it brought them closer. David, too, seemed to draw strength from Anna's discovery. One evening, he asked her to take him to the beach. It was a risk, his body was frail, but Anna couldn't say no. They sat together on the sand, Lily curled between them, as the fog rolled in. David took Anna's hand and said, "I'm not afraid anymore. You and Lily, you're my light." For the first time, Anna let herself cry, not out of despair, but out of love. Weeks passed, and David's time grew shorter. Anna continued her ritual of visiting the beach, sometimes with Lily, sometimes alone. She didn't find more letters, but she didn't need to. Ezra's message had done its work, it had woken her up. She started writing her own letters, not to bury, but to keep. She wrote to David, pouring out her love and her fears. She wrote to Lily, promising to be there, no matter what. And she wrote to herself, forgiving the mistakes she'd made in her grief. David passed quietly one foggy morning, his hand in Anna's, Lily asleep beside him. The pain was unbearable, but Anna didn't feel alone. She had Lily, and she had the lessons of the fog. She and Lily began rebuilding their lives, one small step at a time. They visited the lighthouse often, leaving flowers by the carved word hope. Anna started a community project to restore the lighthouse, not as a working beacon, but as a place for people to leave their own messages of hope, letters, drawings, tokens of love and loss. The project grew, drawing people from Havenport and beyond. Strangers shared stories of their own struggles, and the lighthouse became a symbol of resilience. Lily, now 9, found her spark again, drawing pictures of lighthouses and stars to tape on the walls. Anna watched her daughter heal and felt her own heart mend, piece by piece. The fog still came to Havenport, but it no longer felt like a threat. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there was a light waiting to be found. The camera zooms in on Anna standing by the restored lighthouse, Lily at her side, as the fog begins to lift, revealing a golden sunrise over the bay. "I thought the fog would swallow us," Anna says, her voice steady but warm. "But it showed me that hope isn't something you wait for, it's something you build, one choice at a time." She smiles at Lily, who holds up a drawing of a lighthouse, its beam cutting through the mist. "We all face our own fog," Anna continues, looking directly at the camera. "But you're stronger than you know. What's your light? What's the one thing that keeps you going? Hold on to it, and don't let go." The screen fades to black, but the message lingers, the light is always there, even when you can't see it. Find it. Build it. Share it.